All right, so get ready. We are going deep into some pretty fascinating stuff today. You know, you guys sent us a collection of materials, and they all seem to be about this idea of personal growth and ancestral patterns.
Yeah.
So we're talking like exercises for emotional healing, techniques for dissolving what they call inherited programs.
Interesting.
Even a protocol for something called a proyecto sentido. It's like we're diving deep into those hidden blueprints that make you you.
This is a pretty compelling area to be exploring, you know.
Right.
These materials, they seem to draw from a certain therapeutic approach that puts a ton of emphasis on how those ancestral patterns and subconscious programming can really affect us in the present moment.
Okay, so I was going through these documents, and one of them claims that, like, our unconscious mind can actually store memories in our cells.
Wow.
I've heard of muscle memory,
Yeah.
but this is a whole other level. What's the science behind that?
Well, it kind of ties into this emerging field of epigenetics, which studies how, experiences can alter gene expression. So trauma, for example, can actually leave a chemical mark on our DNA. And those marks can be passed down through generations.
So like generation to generation.
Yeah, it's almost like our cells are carrying this hidden history of our ancestors' experiences.
Wow, that's mind-blowing. So are you saying that, like, we might be carrying the emotional baggage of our great-great-grandparents?
In a way, yes.
Wow.
These inherited patterns can influence everything from, like, our behaviors and relationships to even our physical health.
It really makes you think about those recurring challenges we face in our own lives.
Yeah.
Maybe some of those struggles aren't even just our own, but like echoes of unresolved issues from our family line.
Yeah, it's like we're playing out a script that was written generations ago.
Exactly.
And one of the goals of this therapeutic approach is to help people identify and rewrite those inherited scripts.
Speaking of rewriting scripts, I found this exercise called Cambiar un evento del pasado.
Okay.
It literally means change a past event. And it's all about reliving a difficult memory, but with the desired outcome, you know? Okay.
You get to create the emotions you wish you had felt at the time.
Interesting.
It's like giving yourself a do-over, emotionally speaking.
It's a technique aimed at shifting that emotional charge that's associated with a memory.
Okay.
The idea is that by changing the emotional energy around that event, you can potentially change your subconscious beliefs and patterns related to it.
But wouldn't rewriting the past like that potentially distort our memories or prevent us from learning from our mistakes?
That's an important question.
Yeah.
The goal isn't to, like, erase the past, you know,
Right.
but to heal the emotional wounds associated with it.
Okay.
By processing those emotions in a healthier way, you can free yourself from their grip on your present life.
So it's more about releasing that negative emotional charge rather than pretending the event didn't happen.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Now let's get into these inherited programs.
Okay.
You mentioned that we unconsciously inherit beliefs, fears, and behavioral patterns from our ancestors.
Yeah.
How exactly does that work? Well, these materials suggest that we're kind of embedded in a family system.
Okay.
And within that system, there are all these unspoken rules, expectations, and ways of coping with life's challenges.
Right.
And these patterns can be passed down through generations, influencing our choices and behaviors without us even realizing it.
It's like we're born into a pre-existing story, and we unconsciously take on roles in that story.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And one of the exercises aimed at breaking free from these inherited programs is actually quite striking.
Yeah.
It involves writing down the specific program you want to release, reading it aloud,
Okay.
and then burning the paper.
I saw that. Talk about a dramatic way to make a statement to your subconscious.
Yeah.
What's the thinking behind that ritualistic burning?
Well, the act of burning kind of represents a conscious decision to break free from the grip of that inherited pattern.
Okay.
It's like a really powerful way to signal to your subconscious mind that you're ready to let go and create a new path for yourself.
It's interesting how these exercises combine physical actions with mental and emotional focus. It's like you're engaging your whole being in this process of transformation.
Absolutely.
Now, there's this term proyecto sentido, which seems to be a central theme in these materials.
Right.
What exactly does that mean?
So proyecto sentido translates to life project or sense of purpose.
Okay.
But in this context, it refers to a kind of unconscious life contract that we might be fulfilling,
Oh, okay.
often based on our family's expectations or needs. It's almost as if we're unconsciously living out a role that was assigned to us within the family system.
So it's like those family roles we were talking about earlier, like the caretaker, the high achiever, the black sheep.
Exactly. And those roles often come with unconscious beliefs and expectations.
Right.
For example, the caretakers might believe they're only worthy of love if they're constantly taking care of others.
Oh, okay.
The high achiever might feel driven to succeed not for their own fulfillment, but to win their parents' approval.
That's a fascinating concept, but it also sounds a bit deterministic.
Yeah.
Are you saying that we're all just puppets of our family history? Don't we have free will?
It's not about determinism,
Okay.
but about recognizing the powerful influence of the unconscious.
Okay.
We do have free will, but it's often limited by those ingrained patterns and beliefs that we're not even aware of.
So the goal is to bring those unconscious patterns into conscious awareness so we can make more deliberate choices.
Precisely.
Yeah.
By understanding our preactus sentido, we can start to question those inherited scripts
Yeah.
and choose a life path that's more aligned with our authentic selves.
Okay. Now that brings us to the 5 wounds.
Yes.
These materials suggest that we all experience emotional wounds in childhood.
Right.
Abandonment, rejection, humiliation, betrayal, and injustice. But how do these wounds affect us as adults?
Well, these wounds can become deeply embedded in our subconscious,
Okay.
and they can influence our adult lives in really profound ways.
So it's not just about childhood hurts. These wounds can actually shape our adult experiences.
Absolutely. They can create patterns of behavior that keep us stuck in cycles of pain, fear, or even self-sabotage.
Could you give us some specific examples of how these wounds might manifest in adulthood?
Certainly. Let's take the example of the abandonment wound.
Okay.
Someone who experienced abandonment in childhood might develop a fear of intimacy
Okay.
or become overly clingy in relationships.
Oh, I see.
They might constantly seek reassurance and validation from others, fearing that they'll be abandoned again.
That makes sense. So how do we heal these wounds? Is it even possible to completely erase those early experiences?
While we can't erase the past, we can certainly heal the emotional wounds associated with it.
Okay.
It starts with awareness,
Okay.
recognizing how those wounds are affecting our present lives.
These materials also offer a range of symbolic exercises for growth, which is where things get really intriguing.
Yeah.
We've got exercises for everything from attracting abundance to healing the mother wound through symbolic connections with milk or the earth.
It's fascinating.
What's the rationale behind using these kinds of symbolic exercises?
Well, the subconscious mind communicates through symbols and metaphors.
Okay.
So these exercises use symbolism and ritual to bypass the conscious mind and speak directly to the deeper layers of our being.
So it's like a way of hacking into our own operating system.
In a way, yes.
Hmm.
By engaging in these symbolic actions, we're sending powerful messages to our subconscious mind, reprogramming those old beliefs and patterns.
I'm particularly intrigued by the family tree exercise. It suggests that by exploring our family history, we can uncover hidden patterns and gain a deeper understanding of ourselves.
Our ancestor stories are woven into our own.
Yeah.
By tracing back through our lineage, we can start to understand how those inherited patterns are playing out in our lives.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, we have.
It seems you're on a quest for self-discovery, exploring how your past and your subconscious might be influencing your present. What are some key things you want to keep in mind as you continue to explore these concepts?
I think the most important thing is to approach this journey with an open mind and a willingness to explore those uncomfortable truths about yourself. Don't be afraid to delve into those shadowy corners of your family history or your own subconscious.
Right.
That's where the real transformation begins.
It's like we're embarking on an archaeological dig into our own souls.
Yeah,
And who knows what treasures we might uncover.
exactly. And remember, you're not alone in this journey. We all carry those ancestral patterns, those wounds, those hidden scripts. By understanding and healing ourselves, we contribute to the healing of the collective.
That's a powerful thought.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder, if we all carry these ancestral patterns, how do they play out on a societal level? How do those collective wounds and inherited scripts shape our world?
That's a question worth pondering.
Yeah.
But first, let's delve a bit deeper into how these concepts can be applied to specific challenges, like fear and relationships.
All right, let's do it.
It's really fascinating how those individual patterns can ripple outward, and potentially affect the whole fabric of society.
Right.
But for now, let's zoom back in on your personal exploration.
Yeah.
You sent us quite a few documents dealing with specific challenges like fear and relationship issues.
Yes. There's a whole section on understanding the root of fear. Like, is it from childhood? Inherited? Maybe even connected to a past life. It gets pretty metaphysical.
It does go into some interesting territory. One of the key distinctions they make is between justified and unjustified fear.
Mm.
So a justified fear has a clear origin, like a traumatic
Yeah,
experience,
right.
but an unjustified fear kind of pops up out of nowhere.
Right.
And that's where the ancestral connection might be at play.
So say someone has a phobia of spiders, but they've never had a bad experience with one.
Yeah,
Could that fear be inherited from an ancestor who did have a terrifying spider encounter?
that's the idea.
Yeah.
The approach they suggest here is to dig into the family history and see if there's a pattern of arachnophobia or similar fears,
Okay.
and then work to release that ancestral program.
It's like you're a detective, but instead of solving a crime, you're solving the mystery of your own fears.
Right.
That's pretty cool. And what about relationship problems?
Well, the focus there seems to be on understanding how our childhood experiences with our parents might be mirrored in our adult relationships.
That makes sense. If we didn't receive the love or validation we needed as children, we might unconsciously seek it out from our partners.
Exactly. And that can create all sorts of problems because we're essentially trying to resolve those old hurts with someone who isn't our parent.
Yeah, but wouldn't that make us victims of our past? Are we doomed to repeat those patterns?
Not necessarily. The key is awareness. Once we recognize how those childhood dynamics are playing out in our adult relationships,
Okay.
we can start to make conscious choices to break free from those patterns.
So instead of reacting unconsciously, we can choose to respond in a way that's healthier and more aligned with our needs.
Exactly. One document mentions that the complaints we have about our partners often mirror the complaints we would have had about our parents in childhood. It's a fascinating reflection of how those early relationships shape our expectations and behaviors.
Speaking of patterns, these ciclos biológicos memorizados, or memorized biological cycles, are kind of freaky.
Yeah.
It's like our bodies remember past traumas, and those memories create these repetitive cycles in our lives.
That's the concept.
Yeah.
It suggests that those unresolved traumas can get locked into our cellular memory
Oh, wow.
and keep us stuck in those cycles until we address the root cause.
So how do we break the cycle?
Well, one of the techniques mentioned is a timeline exercise,
Okay.
where you start with your current age
Okay.
and keep dividing by 2,
Okay.
looking for similar experiences or emotional patterns at each age.
Okay, so if I'm 32, I'd look back at 16, 8, 4. It's
Yep.
like tracing your emotional lineage back to childhood.
Precisely. By pinpointing those key events, you can start to understand how they might be contributing to your current struggles.
Okay. Now let's dive into some more of those symbolic exercises. I'm really curious about the dissolución de programas heredados, dissolving inherited programs. It sounds like a powerful way to break free from those ancestral patterns we were talking about.
It involved a very deliberate process
Okay.
of acknowledging the inherited program,
Okay.
writing it down, and then, as we mentioned before, ritualistically burning the paper.
It seems like there's a lot of emphasis on intention and the power of symbolism to communicate with the subconscious mind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The act of writing down the program brings it into conscious awareness,
Okay.
and the burning symbolizes a decisive break with that pattern. It's like you're saying, I see you inherited program, and I choose to release you.
There's something very empowering about that.
Oh.
Okay, so we've talked about fear relationships and breaking free from inherited patterns. What about attracting abundance? I know a lot of people are interested in that.
Right. You included some materials on that as well.
Yeah.
There's a specific exercise for saving money that involves exploring your emotional blocks around finances.
Okay.
It encourages you to visualize a new reality of abundance.
So instead of focusing on what you lack, you focus on cultivating feelings of gratitude and abundance.
Exactly. It's about shifting your mindset from scarcity to abundance,
Okay.
and then taking practical steps to align your actions with your new mindset.
Like creating a budget or exploring new income streams.
Precisely. And it also emphasizes the importance of emotional responsibility.
What does that mean?
It means acknowledging the role of your emotions in creating your financial reality.
Yeah.
If you're constantly feeling stressed or anxious about money,
Huh?
you're likely attracting more of the same.
Mm.
But if you can cultivate feelings of gratitude and abundance,
Okay.
you open up new possibilities.
That makes sense. So it's not just about positive thinking.
Yeah.
It's about taking action and aligning your actions with your beliefs.
Now, you also have some interesting exercises for healing the mother wound,
Yes.
which, as we know, is a complex and deeply rooted issue.
Yeah.
There are 2 main approaches here. One involves a symbolic connection with milk, and the other with the earth.
I was drawn to those as well. They both seem to tap into the nurturing and supportive energy of the mother archetype, whether it's through the symbolism of milk representing nourishment and care, or through the earth symbolizing grounding and stability.
Yes, and they both involve reading specific affirmations aloud for 30 days with the intention of receiving the qualities you need from that mother archetype. It's like a daily ritual to reprogram your subconscious beliefs about the mother and heal those old wounds.
And the exercises acknowledge that there might be interruptions in that 30-day process.
Right.
It's as if those interruptions, those moments of feeling disconnected or unsupported, are part of the healing journey itself.
Right. It highlights the reality that healing isn't always linear. There will be setbacks, but the key is to keep going.
Okay.
Keep showing up for yourself and for that healing process.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in terms of personal growth and healing, but you also included some materials on navigating the world of dating and finding a compatible partner.
Yes. And it seems like the key here is to be crystal clear about what you want in a partner. Right. And just as important, what you absolutely will not tolerate.
There's an exercise where you create 2 lists.
Yeah.
One for the qualities and values you desire in a partner, and another for those non-negotiable negative traits.
Right.
It's about setting boundaries and knowing your worth.
And then once you have those lists, the materials encourage you to take action to meet someone who aligns with your vision.
Like what kind of action?
Joining clubs or groups aligned with your interests.
Okay.
Optimizing your social media presence to reflect the kind of partner you want to attract. Exploring new experiences that push you out of your comfort zone. It's about being proactive and putting yourself out there in a way that feels authentic to you.
And the materials also suggest being mindful of the energy you're projecting.
Yes.
Like if you're looking for a partner with strong, assertive qualities, you might want to showcase your own softer, more nurturing side to create a balance.
Exactly. It's about creating a balance of energies that naturally attracts the kind of connection you're seeking. And it all comes back to knowing yourself, understanding your needs, and being willing to take those steps toward creating the relationship you deserve.
There's also a section on this concept called mentalization.
Yes.
It seems to be a key element in this therapeutic approach.
Mentalization is about understanding our own minds and the minds of others. It's about developing the ability to reflect on our thoughts, feelings, and motivations, and to see things from multiple perspectives.
It's like cultivating empathy and compassion, not only for others, but also for ourselves.
Exactly. And it involves recognizing that everyone has their own unique internal world.
Right.
And that those internal worlds shape our perceptions and behaviors.
One of the exercises suggests reflecting on past experiences and trying to understand the perspectives of everyone involved in those situations. It's like taking a step back and looking at the situation through different lenses.
It can be a powerful tool for gaining insight into those dynamics and improving communication and understanding in relationships. But life isn't always about happy relationships. You also included a section on dealing with grief and loss.
Right. That's an inevitable part of life, and it's something that many of us struggle with. The document I sent outlines a process for working through grief, and it emphasizes the importance of allowing ourselves to feel those difficult emotions fully.
So many people try to suppress or deny their grief.
Yeah.
But this approach encourages you to lean into it,
Okay.
to honor the pain of loss.
And it suggests using this symbolic exercise called the pillow exercise.
Oh, okay.
You imagine a conversation with the person you've lost, expressing your feelings and ultimately saying goodbye.
It's a way of finding closure and releasing those unresolved emotions.
I imagine it could be very cathartic.
The exercise also encourages you to focus on forgiveness, both for yourself and for the person you've lost, as a way of letting go of any anger, resentment, or guilt.
It's about finding peace in the midst of sorrow.
Exactly. Now, shifting gears a bit, you also included some materials on autism, a condition that is often misunderstood.
Yes. One of the documents suggests that autism might be linked to a strong connection with an ancestor.
Okay.
Particularly if the child is considered a double of that ancestor, both in appearance and personality.
It's a fascinating perspective that emphasizes the interconnectedness between generations.
And it suggests that some autistic traits, like repetitive movements or sensory sensitivities, might be linked to ancestral traumas.
So it's an unconventional viewpoint, but one that highlights the importance of considering family history when working with autistic individuals.
It's like we're all part of this intricate tapestry woven together by those ancestral threads. Speaking of connections, another recurring theme in these materials is the interplay between masculine and feminine energies.
You highlighted several documents that discuss the importance of having a balance of these energies in our lives, regardless of our gender.
It's not about conforming to those traditional gender roles, but recognizing the qualities associated with each energy and finding a harmonious balance within ourselves.
The masculine energy is often associated with action, assertiveness, logic, and structure.
Okay.
While the feminine energy is connected to intuition, emotion, creativity, and nurturing.
And if we're lacking in one of these energies, it can create imbalances in our lives. For example, someone overly dominant in the masculine energy might struggle with emotional expression.
While someone overly identified with feminine energy might have difficulty setting boundaries or taking decisive action.
The documents also discuss how these imbalances can play out in relationships, making it harder to attract and maintain a compatible partner.
If someone is seeking a partner with strong masculine qualities, they might need to cultivate their own feminine energy to create a magnetic attraction. It's about becoming the energetic match for the kind of relationship you desire.
It all comes back to that self-awareness and understanding your own energy dynamics. Procrastination is a common struggle for many people, and you've included some insightful information on that as well.
And these materials suggest that procrastination is often rooted in fear of failure, fear of success, or even fear of the unknown.
One scenario they mention is being punished or criticized for completing a task in childhood.
Okay.
Like if a child cleans their room and gets scolded for not doing it perfectly, they might unconsciously develop a fear of finishing tasks. Fidelidad familiar. It sounds like it's about those unconscious bonds and obligations we often feel towards our families, those loyalties that can sometimes lead us to make choices that aren't in our best interests.
The material suggests that these family loyalties can be passed down through generations, creating these repeating patterns of behavior. For example, someone from a family where financial struggle was prevalent might unconsciously sabotage their own success out of loyalty to that family pattern.
It's like they feel guilty for exceeding the limitations of their family history.
The therapeutic approach here is to become aware of those unconscious loyalties
Okay.
and make a conscious choice to break free.
Yeah.
True loyalty lies in living your own authentic life, even if it means deviating from the script that was passed down to you.
It's about giving yourself permission to succeed, even if your family history doesn't reflect that. Now, there's also this idea of no merecimiento, or not deserving, which is a common emotional block.
No merecimiento, the belief that we're not worthy of good things in life, whether it's love, success, abundance, or happiness.
And it often stems from those early childhood experiences where we felt rejected or unloved.
If a child doesn't receive consistent love and affirmation from their caregivers,
Right.
they might internalize the message that they're not deserving of love.
And that belief can then carry over into adulthood, creating patterns of self-sabotage and limiting beliefs.
The materials also suggest that no merecimiento can be connected to financial struggles,
Okay.
especially if someone believes they don't deserve to be wealthy or abundant.
It's like their subconscious mind is working to keep them in a state of lack because that's what feels familiar and safe.
So how do we break free from this no merecimiento block?
Right. How do we?
It's about challenging those limiting beliefs, reprogramming the subconscious mind with affirmations of worthiness, and taking actions that align with the new belief system. Shifting from a mindset of scarcity to a mindset of abundance, and recognizing that you are inherently worthy of all the good things life has to offer.
It's about recognizing your own inherent worthiness and giving yourself permission to receive those good things. You know, it's interesting how all these concepts seem to tie back to those ciclos biológicos memorizados we talked about earlier.
You're right. Those ciclos, or repetitive patterns, particularly in finances, are often linked to ancestral patterns or those unresolved emotional issues we've been discussing.
So someone might experience a cycle of earning money and then immediately spending it all, leaving them back where they started. It's like they're unconsciously sabotaging their own success.
And the way to break the cycle is to identify the root cause.
Okay.
Whether it's an ancestral pattern, a limiting belief, or an unresolved trauma,
Right.
and then work on healing that underlying issue.
It's about becoming aware of those unconscious patterns and making a conscious choice to create a new reality. But how do we know if a fear or a pattern is something we've developed or something we've inherited?
That's where it gets tricky. These materials emphasize the idea that our bodies are reflections of our internal state, that our symptoms often manifest as unresolved emotional conflicts.
So our physical ailments could be clues to those deeper emotional issues.
Exactly. One document specifically mentions that fears and phobias can be either justified or unjustified.
Okay. We talked about that earlier. Justified fears have a clear origin, while unjustified fears seem to come from nowhere.
Right. And the approach here is to explore both the individual's personal history and their family history to uncover the root of the fear.
So if it's a justified fear, the focus might be on healing the trauma associated with a specific event.
Right.
But if it's unjustified, the work might involve releasing an inherited program from the ancestral line. It's fascinating how all these layers are intertwined.
You've also highlighted a document that discusses trabajos de reparación or repair work.
Trabajos de reparación, that sounds intense.
It suggests that we often unconsciously try to repair the traumas or mistakes of our ancestors. For example, if someone's grandmother was a sex worker, they might unconsciously choose a path of celibacy or purity as a way of unconsciously atoning for that perceived transgression.
It's like they're trying to redeem their family line.
It's a powerful example of how family history can influence our choices and behaviors without us even realizing it.
And the approach here is to become aware of those unconscious repair attempts and make a conscious choice to break free from those patterns.
It's about recognizing that you're not responsible for the actions of your ancestors and that you're free to create your own path. Speaking of creating our own paths, you have another section on the impact of childhood experiences on our adult lives, especially in relationships.
It seems like a recurring theme is that relationship conflicts often stem from unresolved issues with our parents.
Right.
It's like we're replaying those old dynamics with our partners, hoping for a different outcome.
And the materials suggest that these patterns are often connected to those 5 wounds we discussed earlier. Abandonment, rejection, humiliation, betrayal, and injustice.
Right. So if we experience one of those wounds in childhood, we might unconsciously seek out partners who will trigger that wound.
It's a way of trying to heal that old hurt, even if it means repeating a cycle of pain. The approach here is to identify which wound is driving your behavior in relationships and work on healing that wound.
By addressing those underlying emotional issues, you can break free from those destructive patterns and create healthier, more fulfilling relationships.
Exactly. Now, another concept you've highlighted is blockios, or blocks.
Blockios are like obstacles that prevent us from achieving our goals or living our full potential.
They can be mental, emotional, or even physical, often stemming from limiting beliefs, past traumas, or, you guess it, ancestral patterns.
One document specifically mentions the no merecimiento, block the belief that we're not worthy of good things.
Right. And that block can show up in finances, relationships, self-esteem. The approach is to challenge those limiting beliefs and reprogram the subconscious mind with affirmations of worthiness.
Another block mentioned is related to procrastination, which, as we discussed, is often rooted in fear.
Those materials suggest that if we were criticized or punished for completing tasks in childhood, we might unconsciously develop a fear of finishing things,
Right.
leading to procrastination.
It's like we're afraid of succeeding because we associate it with negative consequences.
The approach here is to identify those underlying fears and take small steps towards overcoming them, building confidence in your ability to achieve your goals without fear of punishment.
It's about reclaiming your power and recognizing that you are capable and deserving of success. Now, there's also this intriguing concept of double, which translates to double.
The idea is that we might be unconsciously drawn to people who remind us of our ancestors, particularly those who have unfinished business or unresolved traumas. It's like we're trying to work through those ancestral issues through our relationships with these doubles.
It's almost like we're drawn to those who can help us heal those ancestral wounds.
The materials suggest that these doubles might trigger certain emotions or behaviors in us that are connected to those unresolved ancestral patterns.
It's as if our ancestors are trying to communicate with us through these relationships.
The approach here is to become aware of those connections and work on healing those ancestral wounds, recognizing that our relationships are not just about us and the other person, but also about the generations that came before us.
It's a powerful reminder that we're all connected, not just to each other, but to our ancestors as well. And speaking of connections, there's a section that focuses on setting boundaries in relationships, particularly for women.
One document mentions that women often struggle with setting boundaries because they're conditioned to be nurturing and accommodating.
Okay.
But that lack of boundaries can lead to resentment, burnout, and even abuse.
Setting clear boundaries is essential for self-respect and for creating healthy, balanced relationships.
And recognizing that you have the right to say no.
Yeah.
And to protect your own well-being. You're not obligated to please everyone or to sacrifice your own needs for the sake of others. It's about finding that balance between giving and receiving.
Now, there's also this concept of carencia en el embarazo, or lack during pregnancy.
This idea suggests that if a mother experienced scarcity or stress during pregnancy, it can have a lasting impact on the child's subconscious beliefs about abundance.
Oh, wow.
It's as if the child internalizes the message that there's not enough to go around.
So even those prenatal experiences can shape our beliefs and behaviors.
The approach here is to address those subconscious beliefs and to reprogram the mind with affirmations of abundance, recognizing that you're not limited by your past experiences.
It's about rewriting that early programming and creating a new story of abundance. It's amazing to think about how interconnected everything is. Our experiences, our ancestors, our mother's experiences during pregnancy. It's like we're all part of this grand web of life.
You're hitting on a key point there. We are all interconnected. And another layer of this interconnectedness is the impact of a mother's emotions on a developing fetus.
There's a whole section on that, right? The idea is that a child's physical and emotional health can be influenced by their mother's experiences during pregnancy.
Exactly. One document mentions that if a mother experiences significant loss or trauma during pregnancy, it can create a sense of abandonment or insecurity in the child. It's as if the child unconsciously absorbs the mother's emotional state.
And that can lead to challenges with attachment intimacy or a sense of belonging in adulthood.
Another document discusses the impact of a mother's beliefs and fears on the child's development. If a mother is constantly worried about money or health, for example, those fears can be imprinted on the child's subconscious mind, potentially leading to a predisposition to those same fears.
So it's not just about genetics, it's about the energetic and emotional inheritance we receive from our mothers.
And the approach here is to become aware of those subconscious imprints and to work on healing those emotional wounds, recognizing that you have the power to create a new reality.
There's also a section on this emotional block called ahogos, which translates to choking or suffocating.
That block seems to be related to experiences of feeling trapped or overwhelmed, particularly in love money or nourishment.
The material suggests that if someone had a near-death experience related to choking, drowning, or suffocating, it can create a subconscious fear of those things.
And that fear can manifest in many ways, including a fear of intimacy, a fear of financial abundance, or even an aversion to certain foods.
It's as if the subconscious mind is trying to protect you from experiencing that same feeling of being trapped.
So how do you address this ahogos block?
Right.
The first step is to identify the root cause of the block, whether it's a personal experience or something inherited from the ancestral line. Then you can work on releasing those fears, reclaiming your power, and recognizing that you are safe and capable of handling those challenges.
It's about facing those fears head on and realizing that you are stronger than you think. We've talked a lot about the role of the mother in shaping our lives, but you've also included some information on the importance of the father.
One document mentions that if a child lacks a strong father figure, they might struggle with setting goals or finding direction in life. It's as if they lack that internal compass that guides them towards their purpose.
That makes sense. The father often represents that sense of structure, guidance, and support in a child's life.
And the lack of that fatherly guidance can lead to feelings of confusion, aimlessness, or lack of motivation. The materials suggest finding those sources of support and guidance through therapy mentorship or connecting with positive male role models.
It's about seeking out those figures who can help you navigate life's challenges and discover your own path. It's interesting how these materials touch on so many different aspects of life, from our relationships to our careers to our sense of purpose.
It's a holistic approach that recognizes the interconnectedness of all these different aspects of ourselves. And speaking of procrastination, there's actually a section on a specific type of procrastination called procrastination 2.
Procrastination 2, is that like the sequel to procrastination?
You could say that. It's a procrastination fueled by a fear of the outcome, stemming from the belief that completing a task will lead to negative consequences.
Like what?
For example, if a child was punished for getting good grades, they might unconsciously develop a fear of success.
And that fear can lead to procrastination because they're trying to avoid those perceived negative consequences of achieving their goals.
So how do you deal with procrastination 2?
Yeah, how do you deal with that?
It's about identifying those underlying fears and challenging those beliefs, recognizing that you are capable of handling success and that you deserve to achieve your goals without fear of punishment.
It's about breaking free from that self-sabotaging pattern and giving yourself permission to succeed. Now, there's also a specific block that women often experience called bloqueo de maternidad, or the motherhood block. This block seems to be related to a fear of neglecting one's children if they pursue their own goals or ambitions. It's like a guilt trip that society often lays on women.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be a devoted mother, but if you focus on your career or your own needs, you're seen as selfish or neglectful.
Exactly. And that guilt can lead to self-sabotage in a woman's career or personal life.
So how do you break free from the motherhood block?
It's about finding a way to balance your own needs with the needs of your children, recognizing that you can be a good mother and still pursue your own dreams. It's also about teaching your children the importance of self-care and pursuing one's passions. It's about modeling a healthy balance.
That's a powerful message for women. You don't have to choose between being a good mother and having a fulfilling life.
Another recurring theme in these materials is representation inconsciente, or unconscious representation.
Unconscious representation, what does that mean?
It suggests that we often unconsciously represent our ancestors, taking on their traits, beliefs, or even their physical ailments. It's as if we're carrying a part of them within us.
It's like those ancestral patterns are woven into our very being.
One document mentions that we might unconsciously represent our parents, grandparents, or even more distant relatives.
And that representation can show up in our physical appearance, personality traits, career choices, and even our health challenges. It's almost as if we're playing out their unfinished business.
The approach here is to become aware of those unconscious representations so we can break free from those patterns and create our own unique identity.
It's about recognizing that you're not just a product of your genes or your upbringing, but also a soul with its own unique purpose and potential. As we delve deeper into these concepts, it makes you realize how complex the human psyche really is. And it makes me appreciate the role of therapy in helping people unravel those layers and find healing.
You've included some interesting information about the therapeutic process, particularly the importance of understanding the client's emotional landscape. One document discusses language verbal espontáneo, or spontaneous verbal language, suggesting that even seemingly random words or phrases can reveal our true feelings or hidden conflicts.
It's like our subconscious is trying to communicate with us through those slips of the tongue.
And it's up to the therapist to pay attention to those clues,
Yeah.
to listen for those hints of what's going on beneath the surface.
Another document emphasizes the importance of guiding the client during therapy, especially when they resist exploring certain topics or emotions.
It's a delicate balance between allowing the client to speak freely and keeping the session focused on the therapeutic goals.
Right.
The therapist needs to create a safe space for the client to feel heard and understood, while also gently guiding them towards those deeper issues that need to be addressed.
It's like being a compassionate guide, leading the client through those shadowy landscapes of their inner world.
You've also included some information on transferencia, or transference, a phenomenon that often occurs in therapy.
Transference is when the client unconsciously projects their feelings or beliefs about someone else onto the therapist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For example, if the client had a difficult relationship with their father, they might unconsciously start to see the therapist as a father figure and react accordingly.
It's like they're replaying those old relationship patterns with the therapist.
Transference can be a valuable tool in therapy because it allows the client to work through those unresolved emotional issues in a safe environment. By recognizing and understanding the transference, the therapist can help the client gain insight into those patterns and make positive changes in their relationships outside of therapy.
It's like using the therapeutic relationship as a mirror to reflect those deeper patterns and to work on healing those old wounds. As we're talking about all these emotions and patterns, it makes me realize how important it is to be aware of our own emotional landscape.
Absolutely. And these materials emphasize the importance of recognizing and understanding both our primary and secondary emotions.
Okay.
Primary emotions are those raw, unfiltered emotions we experience in response to a situation.
Okay.
While secondary emotions are what we layer on top of those, often as a way of coping or protecting ourselves.
So if someone feels fear, which is a primary emotion, they might react with anger, which is a secondary emotion, as a way of masking that fear.
Exactly. And it's important to identify both the primary and secondary emotions because they can provide valuable insights into our underlying motivations and beliefs. By understanding our emotions, we can start to manage them more effectively and make choices aligned with our true selves.
It's about becoming more emotionally intelligent, both with ourselves and with others. Another interesting point you've highlighted is the importance of paying attention to nonverbal cues in therapy, both in ourselves and in our clients.
Nonverbal cues like body language, facial expressions, tone of voice, and even breathing patterns can reveal a lot about our emotional state, even if our words are saying something different.
So someone might say they're happy, but their body language might be saying something completely different.
Exactly. If their body language is closed off and their tone of voice is flat, it might indicate that they're not being truthful with themselves or with the therapist.
It's like our bodies are betraying our true feelings.
And it's important for the therapist to be attuned to those nonverbal cues because they can provide valuable insights into the client's true feelings and experiences. It's about paying attention to the whole person, not just their words.
It's funny, but when I was reading through these materials, I was reminded of that old saying, actions speak louder than words.
Yes, and nonverbal communication is a language all its own.
Speaking of language, There's a section on the symbolic meaning of our fingers.
Oh, okay.
It suggests that each finger represents a different aspect of our personality or our relationship with the world.
It's a fascinating perspective
Mhm.
that sees the body as a map of our internal world. For example, the thumb represents our relationship with our mother and the way we receive nurturing.
Mm.
The index finger represents our authority and independence. The middle finger represents our sense of self and our connection to our purpose. The ring finger represents our relationships and our ability to give and receive love. And the little finger represents family secrets and hidden truths.
Wow. I never thought about my fingers that way. It's amazing to think about all the symbolism that's embedded in our bodies.
Now, shifting back to the therapeutic process, another key area you've highlighted is the importance of understanding the client's belief system, particularly their beliefs about money.
One document suggests that our beliefs about money can have a profound impact on our financial reality. If someone believes money is evil, or that rich people are greedy, for example, those beliefs can unconsciously sabotage their own financial success.
It's like they're subconsciously pushing money away because they don't believe they deserve it or because they're afraid of what it might bring.
So how do you address those limiting beliefs?
It's about identifying those negative beliefs and replacing them with more empowering beliefs about abundance and prosperity. It's about recognizing that you deserve to be wealthy and that money can be a force for good in the world.
It's about shifting your mindset from scarcity to abundance. Another concept mentioned is coherence, which refers to the alignment between our thoughts, words, and actions.
The materials suggest that when someone is in a state of coherence,
Yeah.
their thoughts, words, and actions are all aligned with their true values and beliefs.
Mm.
And that alignment creates a sense of inner peace, clarity, and effectiveness. But when someone is in a state of incoherence, their thoughts, words, and actions are misaligned.
Right.
And that misalignment can lead to confusion, stress, and a feeling of being stuck.
It's like there's an internal conflict going on. They're saying one thing, but they're feeling or doing something completely different.
Exactly. And it's the therapist's role to help the client identify those areas of incoherence and to start making choices that bring them back into alignment. It's about creating a life that feels authentic and purposeful.
It's about walking your talk and living in integrity with your values.
Yeah, it's about integrating all those different parts of ourselves,
Right.
and creating a life that feels whole and aligned.
Absolutely.
Speaking of integration, what about that concept of masculine and feminine energies that keeps popping up? All right, we touched on it earlier in relation to relationships, but it seems to be a much broader concept.
Mm.
One document suggests that if someone is lacking in one of these energies, masculine or feminine, it can create imbalances in their lives overall.
We talk about how someone overly dominant in masculine energy might struggle with emotional expression,
Right.
while someone overly identified with feminine energy might have difficulty setting boundaries or taking action. Is that what they're getting at here?
Yes, and they suggest it's important to find a balance between those energies, regardless of gender.
Okay.
It's about embracing both the masculine and feminine aspects of ourselves and expressing them in healthy and authentic ways.
So it's not about conforming to those stereotypical gender roles,
Right.
but about recognizing and integrating those different aspects of ourselves. I like that. It's about wholeness.
Another concept related to wholeness that you've included is understanding the client's family system,
Okay.
particularly the roles that different family members play.
One document mentioned that a client's symptoms or challenges might be a reflection of unresolved issues within the family system.
Right. It's like the whole family is a system and each person plays a role in maintaining that system, even if those roles are dysfunctional.
Exactly. For example, if a child is constantly getting sick, it might be a way of unconsciously trying to bring the family together or to distract from other problems.
Right.
It's like the child is becoming the scapegoat, taking on the family's stress or dysfunction.
The material suggests that it's important to assess the family dynamics and work on healing any dysfunctional patterns that might be contributing to the client's issues.
So it's not just about treating the individual, but about addressing those systemic issues within the family.
Right. It's recognizing that we're all interconnected and that our individual well-being is influenced by the health of our family system.
There's also this concept of vibration, which seems to be about our overall energy frequency.
The idea is that our vibration is influenced by our thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and actions. When we're in a high vibration, we feel happy, energized, and inspired. But when we're in a low vibration, we feel sad, drained, and unmotivated.
So it's like our energy is radiating outward, and that energy can be either positive or negative.
Exactly. And these materials emphasize helping clients raise their vibration through practices like meditation, gratitude, and positive self-talk.
It's about cultivating a positive mindset and creating a life that feels joyful and fulfilling. It's like choosing to focus on the light instead of the darkness.
You mentioned a couple of universal laws that I found pretty interesting.
Okay.
One is Lady Polaridad, or the law of polarity.
The law of polarity, that sounds familiar. Isn't that the idea that opposites attract?
Yes, and the materials suggest this law applies to both people and situations. For example, if someone is very dominant, they might be attracted to someone more submissive. Or if someone is constantly experiencing chaos, they might unconsciously create situations that bring more order into their lives.
So it's like we're always seeking out that balance, that equilibrium.
The key is recognizing those polarities and finding a balance between the extremes. It's about embracing both sides of the coin and creating a life that feels harmonious.
Another law you mentioned is ley del ritmo, or the law of rhythm.
Right.
I'm guessing this is about the cyclical nature of life.
You got it. The materials suggest that life is a series of cycles, and these cycles can apply to many areas of life: finances, relationships, even our physical health.
Okay, so we might experience periods of high energy followed by periods of low energy, or cycles of abundance followed by scarcity.
The key is understanding those cycles and learning to ride the waves.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that nothing lasts forever and that change is a natural part of life.
It's about surrendering to the ebb and flow of life.
You also have some information about the ley de causa y efecto, or the law of cause and effect, which suggests that every action has a consequence.
That's a pretty basic principle, right? You reap what you sow.
Right. But these materials suggest that it applies to our thoughts as well as our actions. If we constantly focus on negative thoughts, we're more likely to create negative experiences in our lives.
So it's about taking responsibility for our thoughts and understanding that our thoughts have power.
And recognizing that we have the power to create our own reality. Now, another important concept they mentioned is libre albedrío, or free will.
Okay.
That ability to make choices independent of external influences.
But do we really have free will if our choices are often influenced by our subconscious beliefs, our past experiences, and those ancestral patterns?
That's the question, isn't it? The materials suggest that while we do have free will, to some extent, our choices are often made on autopilot without awareness of the underlying forces that are shaping our decisions.
So it's like we're operating from a limited perspective, unaware of those deeper influences.
Exactly. And the key is to become aware of those unconscious influences and to start making conscious choices aligned with our true values and desires. It's about reclaiming our power and creating a life that feels authentic and fulfilling.
There's also a section on an exercise called Integration Universal, or Universal Integration.
Yes.
It seems to be a technique for embodying the qualities of someone we admire.
The exercise involves identifying someone who embodies the traits or qualities you desire, and then making a conscious effort to integrate those qualities into your own life. It's like using the power of role modeling to create positive change within yourself.
So you might observe how that person behaves, how they think, how they interact with the world, and then try to embody those qualities.
Exactly. The exercise suggests taking specific actions to align with those qualities, such as changing your behavior, your appearance, or even your daily routines. It's about stepping into the energy of that role model and allowing those qualities to become a part of who you are.
It's like consciously choosing to become the person you want to be.
You also have an exercise for dissolving the unconscious representation of food.
Okay.
It seems to be a technique for addressing emotional eating or unhealthy food cravings.
Ah, yes. This one is about identifying the emotions or beliefs that are driving those unhealthy eating patterns.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we often use food to numb our feelings or to fill a void in our lives.
And the exercise suggests writing those emotions or beliefs down and then ritualistically burning the paper as a way of releasing those patterns.
It's about bringing those unconscious patterns into conscious awareness and making a deliberate choice to let them go.
You've also included an exercise for dissolving our unconscious representation of someone else.
Yeah.
A technique for breaking free from unhealthy patterns inherited from others.
It's like we were talking about earlier, those trabajos de reparación, the unconscious attempts to repair the traumas of our ancestors.
This exercise is about identifying someone we unconsciously represent, a parent, a grandparent, or another relative. It involves writing down the specific traits or patterns we've inherited from that person and then ritualistically burning the paper as a way of releasing those patterns.
It's about recognizing that we're not bound by our past or by the patterns of our ancestors, and that we have the power to create our own unique identity.
There's also an exercise for dissolving family loyalties,
Okay.
a technique for breaking free from unhealthy patterns rooted in our family history.
This one is about identifying those specific loyalties that are holding us back and making a conscious choice to release them.
For example, someone might be unconsciously loyal to a family pattern of poverty or to a belief that they're not allowed to be successful.
It's like they're trapped by those invisible chains of loyalty.
The exercise suggests using visualization and affirmations to break those loyalties and create a new reality aligned with your own values and desires.
It's about honoring our family history while also recognizing that we have the right to create our own path. There's also an exercise for releasing a child from an unhealthy proyecto sentido.
This one is about helping children break free from unconscious scripts that are limiting their potential. It involves identifying the specific proyecto sentido that the child is unconsciously fulfilling, and then using visualization and affirmations to release them from that script.
So, for example, a child might be unconsciously fulfilling the role of the peacemaker in the family, always trying to keep everyone happy and avoiding conflict.
And by releasing them from that role, they're free to explore their own unique identity and create a life that's aligned with their true desires.
It's a beautiful way to empower children and to support them in living their best lives. Wow, we've covered so much ground in this deep dive. It's amazing to see all these different threads woven together, from personal growth and ancestral patterns to symbolic exercises and the therapeutic process. It really is a journey of self-discovery.
Absolutely. And I think the most powerful takeaway from all this is that we're not alone on this journey. We're all connected both to the generations that came before us and to the collective human experience. And by healing ourselves, we contribute to the healing of the world.
That's a beautiful thought, and it leaves us with a sense of hope and possibility. And as we wrap up, I want to encourage you to keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep. There's always more to discover, both within ourselves and in the world around us.